Oh my goodness, creating that space. So as you probably heard me relate a while back in September, beginning of September, Labor Day as a matter of fact, I conked the heck out of my head and gave myself a concussion. Didn't know you could do that on a television, but guess what, you can. And I actually did 2 services within that week. And somehow guidance was there. And I actually started having more symptoms after that. And I had to sit with that, had to, move through what's it like to be in pain 24/7 and rising and, and my sweet family, oh my gosh, they just are so solid. To me, they're such an expression of what God is because they're so present regardless. Ups, downs, in-betweens, they're just there, ever loving, ever present. What do you need? How can I bless? And when we're the one with the energy, we're the one giving. And, it's just this easy flow. And I just am so, so grateful for that. So in the midst of all of that, I found so many things going on in my mind of what happens when you don't have all of I love solving problems. That's just my nature is what is it? How do we get from here to where we need to be? What are the steps? How do we do this? My mind wasn't working that way. My mind was working on managing where I was in that moment and where do we go from here? Am I capable of doing this right now? If I'm not, sit down. Do I have a burst of energy where I can handle this that needs to happen? Then I'll handle it. And talk about learning ebbs and flows and really trying to do right by myself to allow the healing to take place so that I wasn't, because my thought was to push, and the doctor said, it's not push as hard as you can. And she was like, I know women especially, and I know guys probably feel the same way, that we're trained to, you go until you can't go anymore. And then you get to rest. Well, that's not really the optimum way of handling the care of this physical body, right? So emotionally, physically, how we beat ourselves up instead of listening and the ebbs and the flows and being in the moment, being in the now. And that's why I just had to pick up the book about the power of now, of being in the moment and addressing what needs to happen now. Okay, so I'll do this now, I'll back off of there. And maybe I have a great day and I get a bunch done, and then maybe I was like, oh, I went a little too far, and the next day I crashed, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of that, and just thinking, when is this going to be done? And the doctor said, no, they make you feel like, okay, 3 days and you're back to work. She goes, it doesn't work like this. This is a matter of a week's process instead of days' process. And she said, just be patient with yourself, do what you need to do, kind of thing. Work was great. They just worked with me, bumping into walls, walking along with my hand against the wall if I had to. Whatever I needed to do, is what we did. So just as I'm coming out of rounding the corner, and all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, I had a whole day where I had no pain. That's awesome. I'm celebrating that. And then, I have another day. It's like more clarity. Oh, I only had a couple hours where it was kind of funky. We're measuring in increments, the healing. But I'm watching the healing and fascinated by how there was nothing I had to do but let it happen. But let the healing happen. I didn't have the consciousness to call it in. Do you see what I'm saying? It happened anyway. Because that's how healing works. That's how wholeness works. I believe we have a leg up in our experience of wholeness, being that we can focus our conscious attention into calling it in and experiencing it and noticing all the ways it shows up. But I think sometimes we miss the fact that healing happens, whether we're applying our conscious awareness to it. It is natural for healing to occur. So how exciting to calm the emotions, to be able to sit in the knowledge that we're ever healing. We are ever healing. Our body is repairing itself as we sleep. All these things we know. That we don't have to be there going, okay, you cells go this way and you do that. Thank God we don't have to manage that. Phew. Thank God there's one thing I don't have to be in charge of, right? But what if there was more stuff that we really think we have to be in charge of that we don't? What can we lay down? Lay down the burdens, as they say. What of this am I willing to let go of and let God? Let go and let God. We hear these phrases and they take on new nuances as we dwell in the presence, as we truly, what is that, to dwell in the presence? That has been the lesson of this. So as I was saying, just as I was coming out of the fog, all of a sudden I got this nasty sinus infection that came on like that and went into bronchitis. And I went, whoa, what's going on here, right? And so, my old self would have said, judgment, 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 you're not doing something right, you're not in tune with God, or you would be in your health flow, and blah, 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 blah. And as we know, those are the old dogs barking in the caravan. We have to get to where the dogs bark and the caravan moves on, meaning we have to stand in our truth. I'm not a bad person because I wasn't demonstrating health. Okay, there is a reason for everything. I tend to believe, I dissect, I go, okay, this told me this gave me that. But where I'm getting at today is, even if we don't have a belief system which says, what does this give me, as far as this came to give me this, even if we don't have that belief system, can we stand in the place where we're choosing that? We're saying, okay, this is, what am I going to do with it? And that's where we empower ourselves, no matter where we think it came from. I have my theories that comfort me. I have my belief systems that comfort me and that sustain me. But even if I didn't believe in God, which is, I thank God I do, because how that sustains you. But even if I didn't, the best way to empower myself is to say, this is what is, and what am I going to do with it? Thank God we also can pour in that energy of God to that thing. In my life, I've had a lot of weird injuries and illnesses. For some reason, in my belief system, is that I somehow chose that as a way to bring up things I needed to heal. Regardless of whether that's true or not, that's how I used it. Okay? And so I had things where I fell out a one-story window into the flower bed when I was 1.5 years old and broke my collarbone and dislocated my shoulder. I was supposed to be taking a nap, and I unhooked those little old latch screens. And my dad went in to check on me. My mom was not at the house. My dad went in to check on me and was like, I'm not in my crib. The window's open, and the thing's flapping. He walks around outside, and I'm just sitting in the flower bed with this stunned look on my face. Because I guess I was in shock or something. They take me off to the doctor, and I'm like tiny and telling them the story about how I fell out and went boom. So they had to keep bringing people in for me to tell the story. Okay, so that was the first big one. I have no conscious memory of that. But when I was 6 years old, I slipped and fell down a flight of stairs, and I hurt my spine and didn't walk for a year. I did first grade. We were in private school, and I did first grade by my brothers bringing me home homework, and they allowed me, I don't know, I didn't have to attend for some, maybe because it was private school, whatever their lessons were or their rules were. But that taught me another thing, right? I felt very precious. I can go on and on about what each thing taught me, but I believe those are pivot points. When those things happen, we have an opportunity. There's something that's stopping us in our tracks, and please, I'm saying you do not have to learn this way, but if it happens, use it. I don't recommend this particular way of doing things. I'm just telling you how it played out for me. So, so I walked I had one leg turned in and all this, walked with a sway back for a few years after that accident. Chiropractor worked that all out. We got that all straightened up a few years later. So then when I was 14, I'm sorry, it's amusing. It can be amusing in retrospect, right? Because you're like going, girl. Okay, so when I was 14, we were on vacation, and I got thrown from a horse, and I broke my jaw, and I dislocated my hip. And so I started high school with my jaw wired together, and I'm like trying to meet everybody, you know, and sucking things through a straw. And at that time, I grew up very, very slender, so I didn't have room to spare. I was like 5'1" and went down to like 72 pounds. And so they had to do other things. Okay, so anyway, we got through that. I had a relatively healthy high school. At 19, I got hit, rear-ended from a car, and was in bed for 2.5 months, staring straight up. Had a big spiritual, so I could go, literally, I could go on and on. I fell flat on my face. I had concussions. I had all this weird stuff, okay? Now, when I was little, there would have been like, what the heck are you beating yourself up for? There are lessons in this, okay, that we look at it. It's worth taking a look at. It's worth self-examination, okay? Like maybe I need to just care a little bit more about this person and where she's stepping and what's happening to her, okay? Like watch your step. I'm the most careful driver you can imagine. So my point being, at each of these points, though, I do look back and see how they ended a chapter that needed ending, and that there was a time apart where I of necessity, needed to pivot. I needed to pivot. I got the information I needed, and I moved forward. Okay, so there was purpose in each of those things. But had I not chosen to take that time, I could have just been, poor me, I'm just a victim. And I did have to work on a victim mentality. That with other things that were happening in relationships and stuff, I did one of the most powerful lessons that I got from the Course in Miracles was I am not a victim of the world I see. And it helped that I had the belief system that I set these things up to, for me to understand X, Y, Z. But again, even if I didn't believe that, if I use it to further my growth as an individual, if I use it, that's what counts. Is can I use this to come to a greater understanding? How do I use this to empower myself? If I'm not a victim, then maybe my mom used to say, sometimes you have to learn by billboards. We get the little signs. Those little bits of guidance that come in and say, do you get it yet? What if you did this? What if you tweaked that? And then if you don't get it, well, maybe something comes a little bit stronger to try to give you that lesson. And sometimes, the billboard shows up because it's that important. I don't believe God is up there saying, this is what has to happen to you, this is what... I don't believe we're being punished. I don't believe that for a second. I believe we're being empowered, and I believe our highest self is directing this by our desire to understand and to embody our allness. And another very important lesson that I learned through this experience was that power of the now, that part that I was saying in the beginning, and that's that very consciously, if I were injured or I went through something major, even if it wasn't physical, which there were other things, right, that weren't physical, that I could be able to stand in that and say, okay, it's this, it's that, let me get the lesson, and it's very useful, and I write about it, and I journal about it, and I heal about it, and I share with other people, and they share their wisdom, and very, very valuable stuff. This one felt different to me because I couldn't use those tools. And I realized this really was about being in that space of just allowing the healing. And what does that mean? What does allowing really mean? What does surrender really mean when we say we surrender? And I think it's the ultimate embodiment of trust. Do we trust God? Do we trust that we are in God? Do we trust this process, that this body knows how to heal itself? What if our emotions know how to heal themselves? After one of the major surgeries that put me, 3 months completely out and unplugged, I had the realization later that my emotions had gone into reset mode just as much as my body. That the busyness and all of the things and burdens I was feeling had been taken away because all I could do in that time was be. All I could do was be. And I think we've lost, let me rephrase that, we don't often remember how to just be because we have been taught and reinforced in ourselves over and over again that if you can be doing, you should be doing. I should be pushing, I should be planning. If I'm not doing it, I'm planning it. I'm either planning it or I'm doing it or I'm cleaning up afterwards. And I got to figure out the next thing that I have to do. And our world is kind of set up that to reinforce that. And that is why I think the people that are connected to nature, that get out and know how to listen to the wind, to breathe that. Do you remember being a kid? I have a very strong memory of going outside and just we had a rope swing in the backyard. And out of this gorgeous tree, and we would go out and just sit out there. Just sit out there before any of the kids were there. Just listen to the wind going through the leaves and watch the light just dappling. That's a meditation that is so powerful. Just being, and you would breathe and you would feel that sense of well-being. You would feel that connectedness with everything else. There are times I know I lay down on a hill and I swear I could feel the hum of the earth under me. I could feel it. I was a part of it. That is what I'm talking about, is that being, you have to be in the now to get that. God is in the now. You can't experience God tomorrow. When tomorrow is today, you can. But it has to be in the now. This is really the only moment we have. And I think we get really messed up with the whole time thing. Because time has become, at least for me, and I'm speaking for myself, and I know a lot of other people do, time becomes this master. It becomes this thing that, we have our routines. I'm very much a, person of routine. We have these things we do at this time, and this we do at this time, and this one we have to carve out the time to just be. Well, I can just be at 3 o'clock. That's my just being time. Well, yes and no, yeah. As we pray, it's our practice time. It's our practice time to just be. But the power of that, and what if we could really get that wherever we are in that even while I'm sitting there in that chair not able to think straight, that I am every bit a part of the divine, as when I am in my highest, clearest, most creative self. That's a weird concept, but it is true. I am not less me while I'm healing. Think about the tree, and I know, oh my gosh, how many times have we used this analogy throughout the lifetime, right, of every author, but the seed and the sprouting of the seed and the growing into this and then becoming the mighty oak and all of that kind of stuff, right? And what part of that process is not right, is them not being, I'm not in my full expression yet, right? What if we could really get, if time is not a thing, if truly we are eternal beings, do you think God has us on a timeline? Well, you got to be by this time, I'm expecting you to arrive in heaven. And if you don't, you didn't do it right. Or we're going to shut the doors. You got 5 more. It's not right. Thank God. That is not how. If there is all eternity, do you think God's anxious about how long it takes us to understand who we are in our expression? That we are already that, and it's unfolding just as it needs to. And instead of this other concept I had often if I had an injury, was like, okay, now that it's done, I have to run to catch up with where I would have been had this not happened. How much pressure could we lay upon ourselves, truly, right? What if we really, really, really can embrace the idea that we're where we need to be, and this was part of the journey, and we are where we're supposed to be. And then as we step forward, whatever that we gathered, juicy gems and tools while we were sitting in our allness, that we were gathering up some great stuff to move forward with. And that we would not have that compassion. We would not have that understanding. We would not have that whatever it was. I know every person, everybody has an amazing story. But the thing that I love is that everybody has those pivot points they can talk about in their life, where when it happened, you felt like it was a tragedy or a mini tragedy or a major tragedy, but you look back now and go, and it was perfect, because then, ... right? How many of those happen? So can we say at all that we're ever off the path? What a concept if we could believe we're always on the path. We're always on the path. It's a matter of how much we're experiencing that we are on the path, and that we are okay, and that we are part of the all, and that we are part of God. How incredible if we could truly, and a lot of what's been going on in my mind too is the what ifs. I love what ifs because they open a door in your thinking. So it's like, what if the peace of God? What if I have everything I need now? And this is my favorite part too, is to turn that into the affirmation and say, I have everything I need right now. What if this was the biggest realization that I need, regardless of what this appears like? What if this is going to give me something I longed for? And I can say, this is giving me something that I have longed for. Take away the what ifs. Know that God is empowering always, in all ways. When about 4 years ago, I had the joy, my stepmother and my father took my stepsister and I on this incredible adventure to Alaska. We kind of took each other. They bestowed us the gift of the trip, and we in turn were their caretakers, as both were wheelchair bound. And so it was this glorious trip, and we got to see so many things, and we had about 4 legs of the trip. We got to be on the Alaskan Railroad with the dome, ceiling, and you're looking at this wildlife, and they don't hurry it. It's meant to be a scenic thing, so they just kind of chug along, and once you get just out of the station, suddenly for miles and miles and miles, the only thing you can see that is man-made is the train and the track. That's it. There's like no buildings. It's just wildlife. It's animals and plants and mountains and terrain and lakes and mud flats, and just everything was postcard gorgeous. So at one point we were in this one area, and the train was not full. And my stepsister and I were taking turns at the window, and suddenly realized we didn't really need to be taking turns. So one of us went over to the window over here, and then one was here, and the parents were asleep in the beautiful train. And so we're looking out the window, and I just was like, this is the best open-eyed meditation I could possibly imagine. And I started trying to just attune to that energy of, I was thinking, God, all I'm looking at is just raw God, This is raw, untouched God. What am I looking at here? And taking in the beauty, but then another level of energy was washing back to me. And it was a little startling because it was so undistilled. It was so unfiltered. It was just pure God energy. There was nothing yet, and it was a little overwhelming at first, and it brought me to tears, and it just, wow, it just hits you so hard and so deep. And then it was almost a little scary. It was like in its immensity and the awe. I understood the word awe, like awestruck, like, wow, this is so much. This is so, it's hard to explain the experience that went through my body. And then I had a little bit of a feeling of almost a sense of loneliness in that. And I was like, this is a little, why am I feeling that? And I went, it's because we're so used to interrelating with each other and so, and I really was getting how we were given each other for that feeling of connectedness and that love that we seek and all of that. But that aside, what I really got into was imagining in my mind that mountain I was looking at and how it opened and evolved over millions of years. And I pictured all the things they show you in these documentaries or whatever, the time lapse where, the seasons are changing and the flora and fauna are, coming up and dying away, and then it changes to this and then it changes to that. And just seeing the God in all of that. And when it was winter wrong because it wasn't in full? No, it was part of the wonderful process that everything needed to go to sleep and all kinds of life was going on under the surface and replenishing and doing just what it needed to be doing to come back into a fullness. Summer was not more right than winter. It was all perfect, all part of the ebbs and the flows and how incredible that is. And I went, so our job in all of this is just to allow. Allow became this word, and I had it posted at work, and just allow. Again, that trust in God, the trust that it is our nature to be in that wholeness. It is our nature to be filled. When we go to the gas station to fill up, you got to turn the car off. Then you have more effectively fill up the car, right? So when we go to fill up, can we take that moment and just say, for this moment, okay, I'm not supposed to be somewhere else. It's not wrong that I have to fill up the tank. It is not wrong that this might take me however long time-wise it takes me to do this. This is what I need to do to keep functioning to my fullest and my highest. This is what I need to do. I'm not wrong to need to sleep. I'm not wrong to need to eat. These are not deficits. These are the beautiful way the systems work. So can we take away the judgment of all the isms and what we learned? We have to unlearn so many things about what time means and what about right and wrong is and what healing is supposed to look like, what wholeness is supposed to look like. What if we really could believe that we're exactly where we need to be right now with the stuff that we have, right? And that we get to sort through it or let it go without sorting it. Or let it go without sorting it and create your way. I have some friends that are our age that just sold off everything. They're empty nesters. Their kids are settled. They waited a couple years. Their kids are settled. They sold off everything but their car, and they're going to go to Australia for 2 months and then decide what they want to do next. That's what they chose to do because they could think outside the box. I would never have come up with that on my own, honestly. But wow, what can we do if we think outside the box, outside of what we think the norm is, what we think we're supposed to be doing at this age, or with this job, or with this level of experience, or with this whatever isms we're doing to ourselves? What if allowing Let it tell you, like it said in that book. Listen, let it tell you what you need. The it being the all. Let yourself, being filled with the all, inform you why you are where you are, how perfect it really is, regardless of what it seems to be, that you're where you are with what you have, and that's perfect. It is what it is, becomes a beautiful statement. So let's take that into meditation. Breathing in the breath of life, always there, always there. Thank God for these beautiful lungs. Thank God for this incredible system of life that we've been given, this vehicle that allows us to move through this beautiful planet. Emmett Fox said, all the sickness in the world does not disprove health as our natural state of being. This body knows how to be healthy and strong and vital. Your emotions know how to be balanced and happy and helpful, discerning, not judging. Your spirit knows how to draw from an infinite well of joy and discovery. All of your bodies working in perfect harmony, aligning, not neglecting one over the other, but in that listening, in that stillness, in that allness. The well is the well-being. The well-being. Have all the time I need to be myself. That is my purpose. I'm where I'm meant to be right now. I am in peace. If I feel I need comfort, say it. Be where you are. In your mind and your heart, say, I need comfort. And then say, I am comfort. Because the God is the I am, ever present. I am comforted. And I am comfort. I need health. I am health. The infinite God constructed this body to heal itself. I dwell and allow that to unfold. I don't use my free will to throw up blocks. I use my free will to open that door and let it in. Anywhere I hurt, in emotions perhaps, sorrows, I bring them to this inner altar, set them down, and say, God, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to name it sometimes. And the energy of God says, I am all. It is good. Wholeness dwells here. All needs are met. God, I want to feel more connected with those in my world. I am connected to the all. My inner light shines. those I need to interact with, we are irresistibly drawn to each other. God, I wish to see peace in this world. We hold the high vision that God sees with no time constraints, that all comes to good. That each and every being and soul comes to an understanding of the allness. We are watching that unfold. Regardless of how it appears to be, healing is happening. God is unlimited, omnipotent, omnipresent. Healing and wholeness are unfolding in all areas. I offer my light, my understanding, my love to healing. As I'm filled to overflowing, I feel that guidance so strong within me of how and where to engage in the healing of myself, of the planet, of the people around me, of my situations. And I listen and listen. And I allow moments of just being. And in those moments of stillness, whether I invoke or do not invoke, in those moments of stillness, the solutions reveal themselves. And I am so captivated and energized that I know how to engage with them. Kindness to self, kindness to others. How more gently can I move? And when I feel those bursts, how best to apply that? Even if I feel anger, to use it for healing, to pivot, to let it project me to where I need to be. As I make decisions, and the times where no decision is needed, and there is just the healing. Health and vitality and spirit are available to all ones. So think that there are many ones around the world that don't have the cognitive abilities to think through how to be their best selves. But God is every bit as accessible to those individuals. So it's not about how smart we are, how clever we are, or even how capable we think we are. It's about allowing, trusting God. Trusting God. Trusting that you are in that, trusting the self. Trusting yourself to align with the best and the highest. And when you make a mistake or you feel like you have, just course correcting. Don't waste the time on berating. Say, what did I learn from this? That's another tool. And I'm moving forward. Because I'm a part of God. God itself would have me know peace and joy. Why would I deny that? The allness wants my happiness. Why would I deny that? So to allow the resting, allow the cycling, allowing the ebbs and the flows, allowing the healing and restoration that is always taking place, always, always renewing. I am always being renewed. refreshed, sometimes rebooted, and always dwelling in the presence of the living, loving God. Thank you that this is so and that we know it and experience it.